I'm Emily, 16F, and I'm in a really tough situation right now. My dad, 45M, remarried 2 years ago to Tiffany, 32F, and things have been difficult ever since. To give you some background, my mom and dad divorced when I was 10. It wasn't a messy split or anything, they just grew apart. My mom moved across the country for a job opportunity, and I stayed with my dad because I didn't want to leave my school and friends. For a few years, it was just me and my dad. We got along great and had a good routine going. He'd cook dinner most nights, he's actually a pretty good cook, and we'd watch movies or play board games on weekends. It wasn't perfect, but it was comfortable. Then, about 3 years ago, my dad started dating Tiffany. He met her at a work conference. She was working as a kindergarten teacher at the time. At first, I was happy for him. He seemed excited and more energetic than he had been in years. But as Tiffany started spending more time at our house, I began to feel uncomfortable. Tiffany always acted sweet around my dad, but when he wasn't around, she'd make snide comments about how I dress or my grades. Once, she told me I should consider wearing more makeup because I looked washed out. Another time, she said I should focus more on my studies instead of wasting time with my art hobby. I never told my dad about these comments because I didn't want to cause problems. I figured I could just avoid her most of the time. When they got married 2 years ago, I tried to be happy for them. The wedding was small, just close family and friends. I was a bridesmaid, which was awkward because Tiffany kept criticizing how I walked or stood during the rehearsal. On the actual wedding day, she seemed annoyed that people were paying attention to me instead of her. After the wedding, things got worse. Tiffany moved in permanently, and suddenly everything changed. She rearranged all our furniture, threw out a bunch of our old family photos, claiming they were cluttering up the place, and implemented all these new house rules. I wasn't allowed to eat in my room anymore, I had to do extra chores, and she even tried to set a curfew for me, which my dad thankfully overruled. I tried to talk to my dad about how I was feeling, but he always seemed to take Tiffany's side. He'd say things like, "She's just trying to make our home nicer," or "having more structure is good for you." I felt like I was losing my dad bit by bit. About 6 months ago, Tiffany announced she was pregnant. My dad was thrilled, but I felt weird about it. I guess I was worried about being replaced or something. I didn't say anything negative, just congratulated them and went to my room. After that, Tiffany got even more controlling. She started complaining about the smell of my favorite foods, saying they made her nauseous. She convinced my dad to cancel our annual camping trip because it wouldn't be safe for her to go in her condition. Last week, everything went crazy. I was coming home from school and saw Tiffany at the top of the stairs. She looked upset and was yelling at me about leaving my shoes in the hallway. I started to apologize, but she kept ranting. As I reached the top of the stairs, she suddenly screamed and fell backwards. I froze, not sure what happened. My dad rushed in from the garage and found Tiffany at the bottom of the stairs. She was crying and holding her stomach. When she saw my dad, she pointed at me and said I pushed her. I was shocked and tried to explain that I didn't touch her, but my dad wouldn't listen. He yelled at me to go to my room while he took Tiffany to the hospital. I sat in my room for hours, terrified about what was happening. I tried calling my mom, but it went straight to voicemail. I even thought about calling my best friend Sarah, but I was too embarrassed and scared to explain what was going on. Eventually, my dad came home and told me Tiffany and the baby were okay, but she needed to rest. He said we discuss what happened tomorrow. The next day, Tiffany told my dad that I deliberately pushed her because I was jealous of the baby. She said I'd been giving her dirty looks for months and muttering under my breath. None of that was true. I admit I wasn't thrilled about the pregnancy, but I'd never do anything to hurt her or the baby. I tried to defend myself, explaining that Tiffany had tripped on her own, but my dad didn't seem to believe me. My dad said he was disappointed in me and that I needed to apologize to Tiffany. I refused because I didn't do anything wrong. This made him angrier, and he grounded me indefinitely. He took away my phone and laptop, saying I could only use the family computer for schoolwork. He even talked about canceling my art classes, which are the one thing that's been keeping me sane through all this. Things have been awful since then. Tiffany keeps playing the victim, acting scared whenever I'm around. She told my dad she doesn't feel safe with me in the house. Yesterday, I overheard them talking about sending me to live with my aunt in another state. My Aunt Linda is my dad's sister, and while she's nice enough, she's really strict and religious. I'd have to change schools, leave all my friends behind, and probably give up my art. The thought of it makes me feel sick. I'm freaking out. I don't want to leave my school and friends. I've lived in this town my whole life. My best friend Sarah and I have been planning to apply to the same colleges. I'm in the art club and was hoping to be president next year. Plus, I've been working part-time at the local animal shelter, and I love it there. The idea of leaving all that behind is terrible. I tried talking to my mom again, but she's not much help. She lives across the country with her new husband, Tom. Tom isn't very nice to me. He always acts like I'm interrupting when I visit, and he makes comments about how expensive it is to have me there. My mom offered to let me live with them, but I'd have to change schools in my junior year and leave everything behind. Plus, I don't think I'd be any happier there than I would be at Aunt Linda's. I don't know what to do. Should I just apologize even though I didn't do anything? I'm worried that if I do, Tiffany will use it against me later. Should I try to find proof somehow? I've thought about setting up a hidden camera or something, but I'm not sure how to do that without getting caught. Or should I just give up and move in with my mom or aunt? I'm scared and confused and could really use some advice. I feel like I'm losing everything: my home, my dad, my friends, my future plans. I don't understand why Tiffany hates me so much or why my dad doesn't believe me. I've always been a good kid. I get decent grades. I've never been in trouble at school. I don't do drugs or anything like that. Why is this happening to me? If anyone has been in a similar situation or has any advice, I'd really appreciate it. I feel so alone right now and I don't know where to turn. Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support and advice on my last post. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I wanted to give you all an update. First, I want to say that I took the advice many of you gave about secretly recording Tiffany. I used an old iPod I had and kept it in my pocket whenever I was around her. It was really stressful trying to catch her saying something incriminating without her noticing the iPod. There were a few close calls where she almost saw it, but I managed to keep it hidden. For the first week, I didn't get much. Tiffany was being extra nice whenever my dad was around, and she mostly ignored me when he wasn't. I was starting to think maybe she had figured out what I was doing. But then, 3 days ago, I finally got the proof I needed. I was in the kitchen getting a snack when Tiffany came in. She started criticizing me as usual, telling me I was eating too much and would get fat. I ignored her, which seemed to make her angry. That's when she said something that made me freeze. She told me she knew I hadn't pushed her, but that she'd make my life hell until I was out of the house for good. I couldn't believe it. I had actual proof that she was lying. As soon as she left the kitchen, I ran to my room and listened to the recording about 10 times to make sure I had really heard what I thought I heard. Then I went to find my dad. He was in his home office working. I knocked on the door and asked if I could talk to him. He looked annoyed at first, but when I said it was important, he let me in. I played him the recording right away, before I could lose my nerve. My dad was shocked. He listened to it twice, then sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, he asked me to leave the room so he could think. I went back to my room and waited, feeling nervous and excited at the same time. About an hour later, my dad called me back to his office. He apologized for not believing me and said he was going to confront Tiffany. He told me to stay in my room while they talked. I could hear them arguing from my room. Tiffany at first tried to deny it, then claimed she only said it to scare me into behaving. My dad wasn't buying it. Their argument went on for hours. At one point, I heard something break. I think Tiffany threw something. Finally, my dad came to my room. He looked tired and upset. He told me he had asked Tiffany to leave, at least temporarily, while he figured things out. He apologized again for not believing me and promised he would make things right. Tiffany left that evening. She was crying and begging my dad to let her stay, but he stood firm. I felt relieved but also kind of guilty. I know Tiffany is pregnant, and I worried about where she would go. I thought that would be the end of it, but things got even crazier. The day after Tiffany left, a woman showed up at our door. She introduced herself as Amanda and said she was Tiffany's sister. Apparently, Tiffany had called her crying about being kicked out. Amanda started yelling at my dad, calling him abusive for throwing out his pregnant wife. My dad tried to explain the situation, but Amanda wouldn't listen. She threatened to call CPS and the police if he didn't let Tiffany come back. She said she'd tell them my dad was abusing both Tiffany and me. My dad was really stressed out after that. He said he didn't want to risk losing custody of me or the baby, so he let Tiffany come back. She's been acting all sweet and innocent since she returned, but she gives me evil looks when my dad isn't watching. I don't know what to do now. My dad says he believes me, but he's still letting Tiffany stay. He says he needs time to figure out what to do, but I'm scared she'll try something else to get rid of me. Some of my friends say I should go to the police, but I'm not sure if that would make things better or worse. I'm trying to stay strong, but it's hard. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home. I'm keeping my iPod with me at all times, just in case. But I'm worried about what might happen when the baby comes. Will my dad choose Tiffany and the baby over me? School has been tough too. My grades are slipping because I can't concentrate. My art teacher asked me why I haven't been participating as much in class, but I was too embarrassed to explain. Sarah knows something is wrong, but I haven't told her the whole story. I'm afraid she'll think I'm crazy or that her parents won't let her hang out with me if they know what's going on. I've thought about reaching out to my mom again, but I'm not sure what she could do from so far away. Plus, I'm still not comfortable with the idea of living with her and Tom. I could really use some more advice. Should I try to get more evidence? Should I tell someone at school what's happening? Or should I just give up and go live with my mom or aunt? I feel so lost and alone right now. Thanks again for all your support. It really helps to know there are people out there who believe me and want to help. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update, and things have gotten even more complicated. About a week after my last post, I decided to do some digging into Tiffany's background. A lot of you suggested I try to find out more about her past, and it turns out you were right to be suspicious. I started by looking her up on social media. I found her old Facebook account, which she hadn't used in years. As I scrolled through it, I noticed she used to post a lot about her job at a law firm. But in my dad's wedding photos, she said she was a kindergarten teacher. That seemed weird, so I kept digging. I managed to find the website of the law firm she used to work for. I called them pretending to be a potential client and asked if Tiffany still worked there. The receptionist told me Tiffany had been fired 3 years ago for unprofessional conduct but wouldn't give me any more details. This got me really curious, so I decided to take a risk. I waited until Tiffany was out shopping and snuck into their bedroom. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate for answers. I found a box of papers in the closet and started going through them. What I found was shocking. There were court documents showing Tiffany had been sued by her former law firm for embezzlement. She had stolen over $100,000 from client accounts. The case was settled out of court, but she lost her law license and had to pay back the money. There was also a restraining order from one of her ex-boyfriends. He claimed she had stalked him and threatened to hurt herself if he left her. The order was from just a few months before she met my dad. I took pictures of everything with my iPod and put it all back. I was shaking as I went back to my room. I couldn't believe my dad had married this woman without knowing about her past. I showed my dad the pictures that evening. He was shocked and angry. He confronted Tiffany as soon as she got home. She broke down crying and admitted everything. She begged him not to leave her, saying she had changed and that the baby needed both parents. My dad is really torn up about all this. He says he needs time to think about what to do. Tiffany is still living with us, but things are really tense. She keeps trying to act like everything is normal, but I can see the panic in her eyes whenever she looks at me. I don't know what's going to happen now. Part of me feels bad for causing all this drama, but another part feels relieved that the truth is finally out. I'm worried about what Tiffany might do next. What if she tries to hurt herself or the baby to gain sympathy? At school, things aren't much better. My grades have dropped even more, and I had to quit the art club because I just couldn't keep up with everything. Sarah knows something big is going on now, but I still haven't told her the whole story. I'm afraid of dragging her into this mess. I've been thinking about my options if things get worse. My mom called last week to check in, and I almost told her everything. But I'm still not sure if living with her would be any better. And I'd feel guilty leaving my dad to deal with all this alone. I could really use some advice on how to handle this situation. Should I push my dad to make a decision? Should I be worried about my own safety? And what about the baby? I'm feeling really overwhelmed by all of this. Thanks again for listening and for all your support. It means a lot to have people to talk to about all this. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has changed. I wanted to fill you all in on what's been happening. After the revelations about Tiffany's past, my dad finally decided to file for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision for him, especially with the baby on the way, but he realized he couldn't trust Tiffany anymore. Tiffany didn't take the news well. She alternated between begging my dad to reconsider and threatening to ruin his life. She even tried to claim that I had planted the evidence against her. Thankfully, my dad didn't believe her this time. The divorce process has been messy. Tiffany is fighting for full custody of the baby, claiming my dad is an unfit parent for kicking out his pregnant wife. My dad's lawyer says she doesn't have much of a case given her history, but it's still stressful. About a month ago, Tiffany finally moved out. It was a huge relief to have her gone, but things are still complicated. The baby is due in a few weeks, and my dad is determined to be involved in its life, even if he's not with Tiffany. As for me, I'm doing better. My dad and I have been going to family counseling to work on our relationship. He's apologized multiple times for not believing me and for letting things get so out of hand. It's been hard, but I think we're slowly rebuilding our trust. I've also been seeing a therapist on my own to deal with all the stress from the past few months. It's helping me process everything and develop better coping strategies. I was hesitant at first, but it's actually been really helpful to have someone to talk to who's not involved in the situation. My grades took a hit during all this drama, but my teachers have been understanding. I explained the situation to my guidance counselor, and she helped me talk to my teachers. They've given me some extra time to catch up on assignments I missed. I'm working hard to bring my grades back up before the end of the school year. I finally told Sarah everything that happened. She was really supportive and even offered to let me stay at her house if things ever get bad again. It's a relief to have someone at school who knows what's going on. I'm back in the art club, and it feels good to be doing something I enjoy again. I'm working on a series of paintings about everything that's happened. My art teacher says they're some of my best work yet. I'm still nervous about what might happen when the baby arrives. I want to be a good big sister, but I'm worried about having to deal with Tiffany during visitations. My dad says he'll make sure I'm never alone with her, which helps. We've talked about setting up a nursery in the spare room for when the baby visits. My mom has been more supportive since I told her everything. She's even talking about coming to visit for a few weeks after the baby is born to help out. It's nice to feel like she cares, even if she can't be here all the time. Overall, things are looking up. It's been a tough few months, but I feel like I've come out stronger. I've learned a lot about standing up for myself and the importance of trust in relationships. I'm also really proud of my dad for making the tough decision to leave Tiffany, even though I know it wasn't easy for him. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future now. I know there will probably be more challenges ahead, especially once the baby arrives, but I feel better equipped to handle them. I'm looking forward to meeting my little half-sibling soon and starting this new chapter of our lives. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support throughout this ordeal. Your encouragement really helped me get through some dark times. It meant a lot to know that there were people out there who believed me and wanted to help. If anyone else is going through a similar situation, my advice would be to trust your instincts, keep evidence if you can, and don't be afraid to ask for help. It might take time, but the truth usually comes out in the end.